I was flown out to Whop HQ in Brooklyn, New York for 12 hours, where I was able to learn from the likes of Eddie Cumberbatch, Umar Ashraf, and Cameron Zub, the founder of Whop, where I was able to discover 3 major lessons and trends that if you ignore these trends, you will be left behind in 2025. And you will be very surprised at number 3, which I learned from Umar Ashraf. If you're new to this channel, we've worked with over 700 high-ticket clients online. We work in the agency info consulting space. So if you're new, give us a like and a subscribe. It lets us know to make more content so that we can help you in your growth journey. Now, if you haven't heard, Whop is a payment and community company that is based in Brooklyn, New York. And I have to say, I really enjoyed my time there. I never knew that Brooklyn was such an amazing place. And while I did visit places like Manhattan, Aspen, and even Washington while I was in the US, Brooklyn was one of the amazing places that really surprised me at how awesome it actually was. And also from now until then, Iman Ghazi has actually invested into Whop, which means a great deal for the agency consulting and info space. And especially it sets up a little bit of a battle between the 2 juggernauts, Alex Hormozi and Iman Ghazi, who respectively run School and Whop. So this will be a very interesting space to watch in the next few years. So why does this matter to you though? See, I've been in the space since 2017, and I've found that over the last 3 years, there has been some key dramatic shifts in the agency consulting and info space that if you ignore these shifts, you will no longer be able to operate your business successfully. But if you take advantage of these shifts, you'll be able to head to the front of the pack and capitalize on the market share that is there right now in the agency and info space. So what is this dramatic change? How will it affect your agency? And how can you actually take advantage of that change so that you can make more money than you've ever made in your life in 2025? Now, I'm going to unpack the 3 key lessons that I learned from listening to people like Cameron Zub, Eddie Cumberbatch, and Umar Ashraf at my time at Whop HQ. So let's cut to the content. First off, what I found amazing about Whop HQ was their offices. They had a beautiful open scape office that had an amazing view of the river over New York and the skyline over New York. And as soon as you walk in, there is all these desks of engineers tapping away at their computer, and you immediately felt like you were in a space that was specifically designed for growth. I was actually able to take some great shots on my Osmo Pocket, and the fact that the sales team were there, the engineering team were there, the marketing team were there, and the CEOs were all kind of in the same open space really felt like you were a part of something. And this is where we sat down to listen to one of the founders, Cameron Zub. And what it really brought home for me is that when we're in the agency consulting space, especially for companies like Whop, we have a limited time frame to actually take advantage of the opportunity that we have right now online. So we can assume that we have this opportunity where we're able to acquire clients easily and deliver results easily, when actually things might change. And you really felt that sense of urgency when you listen to Cameron break down the opportunity that's in the digital landscape right now. So Cameron Zub really brought this home, where he mentioned that you need to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there right now, and you can't just sit on your laurels and kind of relax and expect that things will be the same in a year's time. And that can happen a lot, where someone kind of opts out of being in the agency game or the consulting game, and then they come back and they realize everything has changed and things are happening faster and faster and faster. And one of the things that Cameron mentioned that is affecting the way that we acquire clients is cost per impression. So in case you haven't heard, cost per impressions, or CPMs, which you'd see on the Facebook dashboard, is the cost of getting the eyeballs or impressions of 1,000 people. Now, one thing that Whop is doing really well is they're doing what's called clipping, which is where you create short form content and you reward people for clipping up the content and posting it on their social medias. And they've set up a system where you're able to clip all this short form content, reward creators, and actually the cost of getting your short form content out there on these types of platforms is less than $1 or $2, which is insanely cheap compared to something like Facebook, where I checked my Facebook ads manager today and the CPM's like $100. And so being able to get impressions for your brand like that goes to the fact that people like Cameron and the Whop team are looking to take over the market share of the info space really quickly by finding things what I call asymmetries, which is where how can we get a huge result with a limited amount of resources based on the resources and the tools that we have in our hands and at our disposal at this time. So if you're able to stack asymmetries or stack ways, stack strategies that allow you to get a lot for a little bit of input, you're going to be able to grow quickly. And that is exactly what Whop is doing. So the key lesson here is take advantage of the opportunity that is there right now and don't assume it'll be there in a year's time. Now, with that in mind, if you're wondering how you can apply the concept of little input for greater output or creating asymmetries in your agency so that you can grow and scale faster than ever before, comment grow in the YouTube comments and I'll actually send you a detailed breakdown training of how you can implement some of these concepts in your agency in the next 24 hours to get more leads, sales, and to actually grow your agency at a speed and a rate that you want. So comment grow in the comments below. So after we met at the office in Whop and we listened to Cameron, we were able to meet with the king of growth operators. His name is Eddie Cumberbatch. So if you haven't seen him before, he's the dude that has the YouTube channel and he has his microphone on his dreads or on his cap. And actually, he's a super low-key dude and a really nice guy. So I actually got to chat with him a little bit, just kind of standing around. And I didn't even realize it was Eddie Cumberbatch. Now, he broke down some amazing lessons when it comes to client acquisition that I had actually never thought before. Now, one of the things that he mentioned was that he was actually growing his business and he was able to grow his business to a super high revenue level. I think it was like 400K a month using a strategy that he personally got from Iman Gadzhi. Now, this strategy doesn't require you to do ads, doesn't require you to do cold email or any kind of cold calling or outreach. It's purely driven by organic content. And now this is a really interesting idea if you're an agency and you're super reliant on ads and outreach, when content and organic content could actually be the way you can acquire clients really cheaply. So Eddie was able to break down exactly how this works. The first step is he was able to drive traffic from his Instagram page to his YouTube channel. Now, he actually created specific videos on his YouTube channel, which kind of were designed and pre-framed people to either get value from that video or to either buy from that video. Now, that was the first phase, is he would send traffic from IG to YouTube. They would then get pre-framed with the videos. The videos would then actually send them to a webinar, which Eddie did every Wednesday. And he mentioned that Wednesday was the best day to do a webinar, where he would actually take people through his process and his systems on the webinar, and then he would sell them into a $497 course. Now, this was the key strategy that Iman Gadzhi had told Eddie. And he told him that the quickest way to get to like $4 million a year is not by booking a whole bunch of sales calls, but it's actually by having a lower front end product like a webinar. Like a small course that you sell on a webinar for something like $497, $397. And then you upsell some of those people into a higher ticket course. And for Eddie, that was like a 3K mentoring once they had got in the $497. Now, I thought this was amazing because number one, it's super efficient. So instead of hopping on hundreds and hundreds of sales calls, you literally just have one webinar and you sell everybody on the one idea. If they want to buy, there's a low kind of, easy way for that people can buy. and then they can upsell into a high ticket mentoring program if they actually need that extra support. And so that was really awesome to hear that from Eddie, because that's a strategy that I've never heard before. And it actually prompted me to buy a book that Eddie Cumberbatch recommended. And I think the book is called One to Many. I only read like the first chapter, and that is how to actually structure and put together your webinars. And so if you were to apply this to an agency, you could easily kind of sell a lower front end product if you had a decent agency market, say like real estate or med spa or some kind of market that was reasonably big. You could actually sell them on a lower ticket front end product. And the strategy that I'd actually use is what I call the ham and garlic. It's what Alex Hormozi calls the ham and garlic strategy, which is where you can actually use the front end product, like the $497 product, to make that person ready for your mentoring. So for example, if you have a real estate agent who sucks at sales, and if you get them as an agency client and you send them leads that are reasonably good and they blamed the leads because they suck at closing, what you can do is use that lower ticket front end product to actually train them to be better at sales. So by the time they work with you, they're already in the mindset that they need to do their side of the bargain as well. They need to get better at sales, and ultimately they're going to be a better client, because sometimes you need to take a client who's like a 5 out of 10. If you're taking on a client that's like a 0 out of 10 in terms of skill set, you're going to have a lot of problems. So what you can do is use the lower ticket webinar method to get people in who are at like a 2 to 10, sell them the lower ticket that gets them from like a 2 to a 5 in terms of skill level, and then use the mentoring to get them from a 5 to a 10, which is their ultimate goal, using your higher ticket mentoring. I thought that this kind of phasing and structure of selling your services made so much more sense than going from 0 to 10 with just having a book a call process. Although the book a call process does work, this is just another way to think about it. Now, after Eddie's talk, we went to a bunch of different restaurants. We were able to see a lot of Williamsburg, which is a place in Brooklyn specifically. And one of the crazy things that I noticed is that Whop was spending a lot of money in actually helping people use their platform. And so it really reminded me of what's called the blitz scaling method, where instead of prioritizing things like profit or stability, they actually prioritize speed in terms of acquiring as many users as they can. So to give you an idea, Whop took us out for breakfast. They flew me over. So they literally paid for my flights and my hotel from Australia to Brooklyn in New York. They also paid for lunch, and they paid for a huge, like, super fancy dinner, which was amazing. And it just goes to show that if you're in a market where there is opportunity, there are companies like Whop, which are, I'm pretty sure they're VC backed or investor backed, who have funds that are kind of ready to take over the market, which is super interesting. Now, at the dinner specifically, there was a speaker. His name was Umar Ashraf. I'm pretty sure that's his name. Now, he runs a YouTube channel on trading. I just want to check that that is his name. Yeah, so it is 100% Umar Ashraf. And what he talked about at that event was really, really refreshing and really, really interesting. And I think was a good learning lesson for the crowd that was there. So what he talked about was the fact that sometimes you need to be patient, and you don't want to try and create a brand new product and expect to make $1 million in like 3 months, especially if you're new. If you're experienced and you've been in business for like 3-5 years, then it makes sense that you'd want to progress a little bit more quickly. But if you're brand new and you're just learning how to do marketing, how to do sales, how to do things like systems and operations and hiring, team, SOPs, all those kind of different things, you need to just be a little bit patient. It's going to take you a little bit of time to actually develop the skill set in order to grow. And a really good example is you have these guys who've run an agency for like 6 months. I know a very specific person who's run an agency for like 9 months. Then they transition into coaching agency within 9 months, and it blew up in their face because they haven't had the runs on the board or the experience, the ins and outs the agency has. And that's why our program and what we do works, is because I didn't start teaching people how to do agency for 5 years. I literally ran an agency through COVID, ran a real estate marketing agency, ran a copywriting agency, did all these things before I even thought about coaching anybody on it. And so that's a really good learning lesson, is if you're learning from somebody, yes, sometimes it is good to learn from somebody who's just a couple of steps ahead of you, but at the same time, you want to learn from somebody who's a few steps ahead of you and has tested their, I guess, idea or tested their method on more than like 20 or 30 people. Because if it's only them, there's going to be things in that process that may not work for you specifically. And you need somebody who's going to be able to problem solve for you if something doesn't work. Now, that is exactly what Umar talked about. Because one of the things that he did is he was a day trader for a long time before he even thought about teaching day trading. And he was saying that there are so many people in his space that want to teach day trading and create day trading coaching programs when they've never actually achieved a level of success in their day trading. And to this date, I've earned probably triple the amount of money from specifically my agency versus teaching people about agency. And so that was a really refreshing lesson, that if you're watching this video and you're kind of like, yeah, I want to get to $1 million, the key is actually to go a little bit slower and to really learn the concepts carefully and, learn the skills and realize that you get there in time. But if you try and rush it, and if you try and, I guess, cash out too quickly, it's not going to work. So timing is everything when it comes to that. And I guess that is the third lesson, is be patient. Timing is everything. You will get there. Now, with that in mind, what I really overall learned from Whop is they're a super innovative company that is hungry for growth. And like I mentioned, they are implementing blitz scaling strategies. There's actually a book called Blitz Scaling, which is how companies acquire market share with speed. And a really good example of that is ChatGPT. Now, one thing that's super interesting with Whop is there's sort of a showdown being set up between School and Whop, and which one is kind of different. And to be honest, in all honesty, I started using Whop because I thought it was a payment processor. I actually didn't realize it had a community aspect to it. And so I'm really excited personally to learn about what the kind of community aspect is to Whop. The second thing is getting outside of your bubble and actually going to a different country was a really good experience. So I've been to places like London, Rome, Dubai, Scotland, Germany, Bali, lots of different places, but I'd never been to the US. And actually visiting the US was a real game changer for me, because it realized that like the US is sort of like the center of the world. Like they're a big country and they're a big economy. So being able to see New York, which is effectively like the biggest city in the country and the biggest city in the world, was a huge eye opener. And just getting out of your bubble, getting into a new city is a really good experience, because you're kind of able to learn a lot, have a little space to like, play with your ideas. And it's overall just super inspiring for business. And the last thing is actually being able to network and meet with like-minded people who you'd usually see on the other side of a Zoom call or on like Facebook was super cool, because I was able to meet a lot of people who were like really high-level media buyers, people that were in the agency space, people who were scaling their agency, people who were like really good sports bettors. I met a dude on the bus from Brooklyn to Manhattan who like makes $500,000 a year sports betting, which is insane. So just seeing what everybody else is doing out there, I think is a super important thing that you should do at least every quarter. Now, with that in mind, if you want to take away the lessons that I took from this event that I mentioned before, that are broken down into a document that you can use to actually grow and scale your agency quickly, comment grow in the comments below. Appreciate you guys watching. I'll speak to you soon. Remember to like and subscribe. It sends us a signal that you like the content, and we'll speak soon. Cheers.